Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I'm your host, PattSun, and today we're gonna be taking a look at r/TrueOffMyChest, where OP seemingly avoided paying alimony, but at what cost? Let's begin. I ruined my wife's life. Posted by Reddit user AnyPhoto9958.
So to start, me and my wife were happily married for 6 years, and I was the only one making decent money, while she was a stay-at-home parent with our daughter. One day, after coming back early as my engine went out on the way to work and a friend dropped me off back at home, I caught her cheating while I was supposed to be out and our daughter was at preschool. After some yelling at my friend to get out and yelling at her, she started the crying and apologizing, saying it was a mistake. I calmed myself down and went with the flow. I told her I need some time to think and left. A few days go by of her checking up on me at my mom's house, and she tells me she'll wait however long it takes for me to forgive her and also says that we should do marriage counseling. I agree and tell her I think we can get through this, but really in my mind, I'm trying to figure out what to do next and I'm already emotionally checked out from her. So a year goes by, but through this year I've done a lot, like withdrawing the money from my bank. I have 2 accounts, one for myself and one for both us, but she still knows about my separate one. I've also downgraded our house significantly. We used to have a 3,000 square feet house and the rent was around 3.4 thousand, but I took us down to an apartment costing 1.1 thousand-ish. And I also forced her to get a job to pay for the place and counseling. Anyways, after getting all my money out, I got my mom, who has Mexican citizenship, to let me use one of her houses in Mexico as an address line to open a bank and finance account, and I dump all my money in there under her name and go get a lawyer. After everything is set up, I show up back home and lay down the divorce papers in front of my wife and tell her we're done. She starts with "I thought we were doing well," and I told her, "We didn't cheat, you did." And I left back home with my mom until court day comes, and every day she's visiting while trying to convince and seduce me into coming home. But eventually the day comes, and before I go, I sold my car for what few thousand I can get and have my mom drop me off. A few things happened that really made matters a lot harder than I expected. For example, she knows that I have my own bank account separate from our joint, but I also knew she knew. So I obviously made that aware as to not get in trouble, but that introduced another problem. I made $200,000 a year, but I have only about $4 grand in my account from selling my car, when I should have another $1 million in there. Anyways, the court pretty much demanded to know where the money went, and I told them that my girlfriend was an expensive girl, and that was that in terms of court. After my ex-wife doesn't believe that I have another girl, since I'm always with my daughter when I'm not working, she tries to get a financial advisor, but he was going to charge around 20-50 grand depending on what he had to do. Now, believe it or not, but between paying for the apartment, our daughter, and counseling, she didn't actually have enough money for one, so she took out a loan and borrowed from her parents to get one, which actually kind of scared me, but I guess he couldn't find anything, which really backfired, as now she has to raise a kid and pay for her own place and vehicle on a team lead salary. But not all is well yet, as I was still ordered by the American court to pay her $7,400 a month out of the $12,000 I make due to alimony plus child support, and she tells me that's more than enough for her to live without me. She can quit her job, and she's right, but not really, as I tell her that I swear on my life that she wouldn't get a penny out of me, and well, she didn't. I moved to Thailand, which costed a bit more than $100,000, but I could stay for 15 years on it, which I could probably make back in a year. Anyways, I call my ex and let her know I'm not in America anymore and that she should really consider getting her job back. I wasn't trying to be cocky, and I know this is going to sound very hypocritical, but I didn't want my daughter to end up homeless. My ex-wife gets rightfully pissed and tells me she won't manage without me and starts begging on the phone, saying how she changed for me and all that. After that, I'm getting call after call. Most are saying they'll miss me since I won't be able to come back because I'm wanted in America for child support. But some were obviously pissed off I had abandoned my wife and child. To them I uploaded on my Facebook the pictures of my wife with my friend that she was cheating on me with, which turns out he had a girlfriend as well, who called me asking why I didn't tell her sooner, to which I said I didn't even know she existed. That was 2 years ago, and as far as I've heard, she's doing pretty terrible and had to give up our daughter to her parents while paying them child support, as they didn't even want to care for her. Her parents blame her for everything, which probably wouldn't be happening if I didn't often spend time with her dad, and after I found out my daughter was with them, which was a little over 4 months after I left her, I did start paying her mom $1,000 a week to help a bit, but I did also ask that they not tell my ex. I even got my sister to check up on them, as I really don't want my ex getting a penny. TLDR, wife cheated on me and I hid all my money and left my daughter and wife with nothing with a $50,000 debt. Some extras that didn't fit in. Reason I said 120 to 200,000 was because at the start of our marriage, I was making 100,000 a year after taxes. But I was investing most of that into an F that was increasing the money I put in by about 10% a year, which I still live off of in Thailand without working. My ex is pretty ruined in our area since I posted pictures of her and my friend she cheated with on Facebook. My daughter and I FaceTime every night before bed and screen share the new movies that come out.
This story is just so sad to read. It's sad that the court system would actually reward the person who destroyed her own family for some dick. But what's even more sad? OP, your daughter might develop abandonment issues due to what her mother and you, her father, have done. I don't really care if your ex-wife ends up homeless. She belongs to the streets anyways. But your daughter, I am worried about. Could you at least get your sister or a family friend or your mother, it doesn't really matter, to accompany her for a visit to where you're currently staying at least once in a while? And now for today's second story. I can't seem to forgive my sister after she completely bailed on me when I was on the brink of being homeless. Posted by Reddit user RD Shockers.
My sister from a young age has had only one person to rely on, and that person was me. We come from a broken family with one parent that was only around till I was 5, and the other who was stuck in a cycle of addiction. Because of our situation, I grew up very quickly and shielded her from as much as I could. She obviously was aware of what was going on, but she was not in the crosshair. I started with stealing from our mother to make sure we had food and bills were paid. I got a part-time job at 13 because we couldn't rely on our mother, and when I graduated, I immediately got 2 jobs and we moved out. I had to push my sister through high school. She wasn't an easy teen for obvious reasons, on top of going month to month trying to get as much money together to pay our bills. At 19, she finally graduated after being held back a year. She changed her tune a lot and she started working as well and had her own place when she was 21. I finally got a shot to do something for myself and got a degree. As a result, I got a much better job. But unfortunately, that was right before the pandemic hit, so I pretty much went from hired to fired as I was the new guy. Now, the reason I am saying all that is not to pat myself on the back, but to stress why my reaction is the way it is. I was out of work, on the brink of losing my apartment, and only had one person who I expected I could turn to, my sister. She was recently married, lived with her husband. So I asked if I could stay a few weeks, at most a few months, until I got a new job. It was a no. I was taken aback, but it remained to be a no. A week or 2 later, I was kicked out of my apartment. I asked again and it was a no. At this point, I am homeless, and the only reason I didn't end up sleeping on the damn street was because I could crash at a few friends until I got a temporary job. I rented a room with a bunch of roommates for a while, eventually got a job in my field again, and am now doing fine. That said, I have not spoken to my sister since. She has called, messaged, banged on my door, sent crying voice messages, apologized dozens of times, tried to explain herself, tried going to my job, tried going to friends, everything. I haven't said a word to her, and it's been over a year now. She recently had a child and she is still desperately trying to reach out. She claims her husband refused to let me stay. He even reached out several times to beg me to reach out. But to me, the one time I need her, she basically tells me to go fuck myself. I feel like it was the last push I needed to just end that chapter of my life. I feel bad, but just not bad enough, I guess. Even my friends and my girlfriend are on my case that I should forgive her and that they understood it at first, but now think I am being an asshole. What would you guys do? And now for OP's update. So I had a huge amount of people inquiring as to what ended up happening, and asking me to make an update should anything happen, and while I wasn't sure if I would or even should, I eventually decided to just go ahead and do it. Let me start by apologizing to the people who commented on my post. I made my post and it didn't seem to gain much traction at all, so I more or less stopped looking at it for about a day, I think, only to figure out the next day that I had gotten a lot of comments. Unfortunately, when I decided to reply to a lot of the comments I had been reading, I realized that this subreddit locks the comments after a certain number of comments have been made or karma has been reached. I am afraid I was not aware of this admittedly very odd rule, so that's on me. I did end up reading most comments and would like to thank everyone offering advice or just saying something supportive. First, to answer a couple of questions that I was unable to answer, along with addressing some incorrect comments in the previous post yet I saw asked quite a few times. 1. The first few no's were without reasonable explanation. I was not aware of her given reason that her husband was not okay with it until later. 2. She did not know she was pregnant when she declined, and most of it happened before she would have even been pregnant in the first place. I mean, most of this took place over a year ago. I even put that in the post, so I am not sure how that math would even work. 3. I am not an anti-vaxxer or dirty or something. There were quite a few comments that theorized this would be the case for her refusal. I got my 2 vaccination shots the moment I could them, and while my personal hygiene is not exactly anyone's business, I shower once a day and my apartment is spotless. 4. A lot of advice and comments seem to be from the perspective of functional families with a functional family structure. That is not the case here. The primary reason I am so gutted about this entire situation is exactly that. This isn't a case of, well, I don't want my cousin to stay in my house. He can stay somewhere else. This is a case of me having sacrificed my entire youth and a significant portion of my early adult life for someone that I played no part in creating or have any parental responsibility for. And the first and only time I ever asked her to do something for me is the only person I could reasonably fall back on, and her not doing that. That's more than a familial spat. That is a straight-up betrayal. That's also an answer to the people saying that she owe me nothing because I chose to be a parent. Anyway, with that out of the way, I decided to follow some advice given by several people. I told my girlfriend and the friends who involved themselves or were involved by my sister to back off or to lose my number. They do not understand my perspective, and they likely never will. And I need to get that through my head, as I have a tendency to talk about my life as if it is a standard. But it is a standard only to me. Luckily, most people don't go through any of that. One friend kept pestering me about it, and I ended up dropping him as a friend, but my girlfriend was apologetic, and most friends were either apologetic or said they'd drop it. I ended up writing a long email to my sister, and while I will not copy and paste the entire thing here, as it contains a lot of personal information and far more horrible stuff that I am unsure will even be allowed on a sub like this, it more or less boiled down to me explaining to her how her refusal to take me in for what ended up being a few weeks made me feel, and I detailed a long list of things I had done to take care of her. I ended up finishing my email telling her that even if I take her version of the story as truth and her husband is the cause of me not being allowed to stay, that it is entirely irrelevant to me because that just means she didn't fight for me at all. I also informed her I have no interest in meeting her child as of this moment, and I have no interest in reconnecting with her. But if that changes in the future, I will be the one to contact her. I told her to let this be a lesson to her, as it has been a painful lesson to me. Boiled down, I have decided to move on and keep the door on the tiniest of cracks. She has responded a lot since that moment. She seems unable to accept it, but I have not responded since. I don't have anything else to tell you, I am afraid, and since the sub only allows one update, well, it is what it is. Again, thank you all for taking the time to respond to my post, and thank you all for your insightful replies.
OP, you did what I would have done in your situation. She turned her back on you that one time that you actually needed help, that she could have showed you how much she appreciated what you did all her life, that she had your back just like you had hers. Her actions, or lack thereof, said everything there was to say. It's sad for everybody, but especially for you. Good job on setting boundaries, OP. You were a good brother and an even better human for all the sacrifices that you made. You did well. Viewer support is the best way for me to remain independent and continue bringing you these daily videos, which will always be here on my channels for you to watch absolutely free. So please consider subscribing to me on Rumble and on YouTube. Both will be linked in the description box down below. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you even somewhat enjoyed today's story, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you really like it, consider subscribing to PattSun to never miss a future upload. Stay strong.